Alright, you're welcome to yet another video, and in this video I'm going to teach you the fundamentals of graphics design. Alright, I already did the part 1 of this tutorial, and this is the part 2. So in this part 2 I'm going to walk you through a practical steps on how you implement the fundamentals of graphics design. You can go check out the previous video if you've not watched that, so that you can follow the series. This is actually a series, so you want to make sure that you go back to that. I will try to link it somewhere around this video, either in the description or somewhere around the screen, so that you can go and watch that video. Before any further ado, get into my screen right now and I will show you what I am talking about. Alright, but without talking too much, I would like you to subscribe to this channel, give us a thumbs up if you're liking what we're doing here, or if your aim is to learn graphics design. We are actually taking on a series from scratch, from what every graphics designer should know down into the basics and putting out practical designs. Alright, so if this sounds like what you want to hear, you want to stick around to the end of this video so that you don't miss any part of this video. Alright, that being said, let's get down into my screen and into my slides so that I can show you what I am talking about. Alright, okay, so in the previous video we listed 8 items that is involved in fundamentals of graphics design. The first one we talked about is composition. Alright, we talked about composition. We talked about the fact that composition is the differences that exist in different elements in your design. Alright, you can go back to that video and see that, or I will drop a link in the description of this video so that you can get the ebook to this particular lesson. Alright, so you can follow through with the ebook and the video as well. Alright, so composition. Now, using the design you can see on my screen, alright, I will try to illustrate what composition is. Okay, so I will try to illustrate what composition is. And now when we talk about different elements, we mentioned that it involves shapes, it involves text, it involves icons, it involves images and all of that. So it is the differences that you create in all of these elements that you can see on the screen. Now we have this as hire us. Right, we have the logo of the organization, and then of course we have these shapes up here. We also have this shape that carries who we design for, and then of course we have the contact details. All of these are elements in this design. Okay, so how you interpret the differences, or you are able to show the differences that exist in all of this, is what is known as composition. Composition is that they are put together to make or give you a beautiful design. Alright, so moving on to the next, which is the number 2, we have color theory. Color theory. I emphasized on color theory in the previous video, and I mentioned how that you've got to learn how colors relate with one another. Okay, so in your design you want to be sure that you're not using colors that are off, or that your viewers are going to struggle to understand or see what you are putting out. All right, for instance, if you look at my screen here, we have red to show the numbers. All right, and the font over here we have green. Now if you look at the entire design here, you apparently see 2 colors that are very dominant, which is the yellow and the green. Alright, apart from the background, we have the yellow and the green. Now introducing red into this design makes it off, makes that totally off. Alright, so understanding color theory is basically understanding how colors interact with each other, so that you are able to put them side by side, and in the end you achieve a proper and a beautiful design. All right, let's say for instance I click on this shape right here and I take it off. All right, if I take that off, you will see that you will likely struggle to read what we have on the screen. Or churches rather, we would struggle to read this very item here. But once I replace it back, pardon me, I'll put back that up right now. Once I replace this, right, you are able to see exactly what is on the screen. So that is color. That's also an element of color theory. All right, so being able to understand how this yellow interacts with the green helps you know when to introduce what color and blend with another color. I can't just use yellow on a white background. That would be dim for me to communicate what I'm trying to show to my audience. Nonetheless, you want to understand that when you're designing a marketing flyer, you want to use stuffs like yellow, you want to use stuffs like red, because they catch more attention. All right, so moving further into the next, we have typography. Number 3, the third thing we talked about in the previous video is typography. And I remember that I explained that typography is basically the kind of font style that you use. Now on this screen right now, we basically have two kinds of fonts. And those fonts are what expresses what we're trying to communicate. Now we are not using fanciful fonts all across, because this is not a kind of design that should attract more fanciful fonts. We are trying to communicate something very important to our audience. We're trying to tell them to hire us so we can design for them. All right, so we got to use fonts that are legible and readable enough. Right, so you can see over here we have a good font here that is readable enough. Then over here as well, we have fonts that are readable enough. All right, so that being said, we'll move on to the next. But before we move, just in case you have not subscribed to this channel, please do well to hit the subscription button and then give us a thumbs up, so that whenever we post videos like this, you can be notified by YouTube. All right, so let's move on to the next. All right, so the next thing that we have here is contrast, white space, visual hierarchy. I will try to do well to explain what all of these are, and then in the end we should be able to arrive at a very good understanding. All right, so talking about contrast, I make sure I said something about contrast. I talked about contrast, that contrast is to the end that you are able to put all the elements together and differentiate them with either colors or shape or placement. All right, so now the relationship between all of the elements and how they are able to be well explained is what is simply referred to contrast. Like for instance, if you look on my screen, you will see freemium graphics course. All right, that I have been able to give attention to freemium graphics course because of the kind of color and the style that I used for that particular write-up. All right, then of course we have over here, we have the system mockup. I have the mockup of the system of this particular design in that, so that we are trying to show that this particular training is for both those that uses laptop or desktop or your computer as it were, and as well for those that are going to be designing with smartphones. So we illustrated that by having this tool to exemplify what we're trying to communicate. All right, so contrast is just basically your ability to place or arrange or distinguish each of your elements from one another, so that your viewer can understand or can be guided properly to understand what you're trying to communicate. Then the next one we have is white space. Now I explained that white spacing is very important because that helps your viewer to understand how and what is relevant. All right, so white spacing, let's say for instance over here there is no space at all. You will be struggling to understand what exactly is going on the screen or on the design. Let's say, for instance, let me try to get a shape. Let's say, for instance, we have something like this. Then we now give it a kind of color. All right. Okay. Then let me duplicate that. Then we have another one here, give it another color. Duplicate that. We have another one here. You know, we just module up everything together, try to put images. You know, if you take a look at this right now, putting these 3 images right here, you would see that you are not able to really understand what is going on here. This big red circle is giving you another vibe, black is giving you another vibe, this very one is giving you a separate thing, and you're trying to fight your way around. All right, you're trying to fight your way around to understand what exactly is going on the design. That is not proper enough. So you want to be sure that you give breathing space to your element, to the elements in your design. Now, for instance, for this, I could further reduce this, right? Could further reduce that to give it a little more space. All right, give it a little more space, and that is it. All right, even this I could further reduce this as well. Okay, so and we give it a good space. Now if you look around, you see that on the edges of this design there is space. It's not just choking around the corners, and so that is what we mean by white spacing, and that is very important when you are designing. All right, just to move on to the next, we have visual hierarchy. Visual hierarchy, it's like I explained, whenever you hear the word hierarchy, it refers to order of importance. It refers to order of importance. So when we talk about visual hierarchy, you want to be sure that you are able to place each of your elements in order of importance, so that when your viewer is looking at your design, your viewer is able to understand or able to place what is most important. All right, for instance, over here we have freemium graphics course, right, with a kind of tweak color and a stylish font or a stylish design that depicts that this is what we are most particular about. All right, then we come over here, you can see that your laptop, the laptop and the smartphone is also another element that is expressive, because we also want people to understand that we are not only teaching those with either smartphone or system, we are interested in both. So we illustrated that with this. Now, visual hierarchy has been able to guide my viewer to understand that this thing is going to run for 30 days and this is when it is starting, before they even get to see what they would be offered. All right, so that being said, we'll just go on to the next and then we move from there. All right, moving on to the next, we move to the next slide over here. All right, yes, okay, so we have the 7th item and the 8th item, all right, which is grid system and image editing software. All right, okay, just to explain the grid system, all right, there are 2 ways you can do this. Now, the first way is where you have your text icon, just below it you will see the little arrow. Just click on the arrow and text would appear, then table would appear. You can click on the table, right click and drag. That gives you a grid setting kind of. All right, that gives you a grid setting kind of. And then what grid system helps you do is that it helps you to segment your workspace or your design layout, so that you can have each element in the boxes provided such that your design is arranged properly. Now, if you look at this grid system, we have the logo in one section, then we have white spacing around it. We have welcome to May in a section with white spacing around it. Then we now have the text that describes what we're trying to reach people over here. And then down below here we have, now beside here we also have the flowers that try to fancify the design in a bit little more customized way. Okay, that is the first way you can apply grid system. Now let's remove that. On your interface here, you have what we call ruler. We have the horizontal and the vertical ruler. You can as well use your horizontal and the vertical ruler, most especially if you're designing a logo. All right, like for instance, this U logo that you're finding here was designed by some of these things. So you let me go back to that. If you want to draw your ruler, just click on where you are seeing my cursor, click on it and drag, and you can place it wherever you want, however you want to segment your design. Then you can drag it again and bring it over here. Drag from the top and to give it an horizontal kind of, you just segment where you want this to stop. And then of course you can also do this right now. Why are you putting grid system? Because you want to be sure of the areas you want to work with, where you want to keep out as white space, where you want to apply other text and all of that. Okay, so that being said, we'll just move on to the last item on this. Now the last item is saying image editing software. Now CorelDRAW is not so much of an image editing software, but of course there are a lot of tweakings that you can do with images on CorelDRAW, and it gives you a beautiful thing in the end. Let me say for instance, I want to work on this flowers. Let me copy that and paste okay over here, and then I want to work on this. Let's say for instance I want to work on this. I can just do this. Okay, yeah, okay, so this right here is what I want to work with. Now if I want to just tweak this and give it a little more effect, I just come over to effect and come over to adjust. Then under adjust, I would see tone curves. Of course there are different other ways you can make adjustment, but just for speed, then I just pick this and then try to adjust the image a little. Now you can see that as I'm adjusting this, the image is gradually taking another shape. All right, the color is becoming darker. Then if I adjust it this way, it becomes lighter. If I adjust it more, it becomes lighter, and all of that. Do you understand? Okay, so that's basically it. Now on CorelDRAW, you can as well tweak and walk around with. There are many ways you can walk around with image. Of course, I'm not going to cover so much of that over here because this is not the video to cover that. You check back on this channel. There is a video that will be on this channel that would describe on about image and how you work with them on CorelDRAW. But most importantly, you want to learn a few other tricks around that Photoshop, and then you are able to tweak your photos quickly. So just to add, to quickly change this image here to black and white, you can come over to bitmap and then come over to but hold on. Okay, so if I come over to bitmap over here, right, come over to mode, you will see grayscale. Now grayscale automatically and immediately changes that image for me to from black and white, or from the original color to a black and white. All right, so this is basically how you walk around image editing softwares. Thank you, see you in the next video. But for now, before you leave, do well to hit the subscription button or give us a thumbs up so that YouTube can recommend this video to others as well. You would do well to also extend the hands of greatness and give it to our friends, your friends, so that they can as well learn what you are learning over here. All right, that being said, we've come to the end of this video today. Do well to subscribe if you've not done that already, and if you have, thank you very much for encouraging us. See you in the next video. Thank you. Yo.